Why do we work in healthcare? I bet if I polled the room, amongst the top answer would be to help people get better. That can take many different guises, but in my opinion, that's fundamentally what it would be. And I know that what I'm going to talk to you about today, I share with many people in this room. I bet there are many healthcare professionals here today who have at some point experienced the same feelings as me. The deep squeeze of frustration inside the pit of your belly when you feel a patient isn't following your advice. You've assessed them and told them what they need to do. You've agreed the plan and the goals to get there, and they just don't do it. That heart sink moment when you realise the patient isn't following the plan so they can get better. Those patients that you look at and think, all you have to do is these exercises and you'll be able to use your arm again. All you have to do is take this medication and it will reduce your risk of this or that, and they don't. That feeling that you haven't quite connected with the patient, you haven't quite found the light bulb of what's going to make them want to comply with your advice, it can be so frustrating and difficult for us to accept. Well, it was for me. I'm a stroke physiotherapist, and as a therapist, I bring to the table the knowledge, the skills, and the ability to help people. Stroke rehab is my thing. I've read all the stroke guidelines, read all the articles, know the evidence base back to front, and can recite the recommendations. I can tell you what the patient presentation is, what the outcome will be, how they recover, and what they need to do to get there. Evidence-based queen. And that's important to me because to know the evidence base is to give people the best rehab ever so they can get better quicker. I can tell you that the traditional model of therapy focuses on the physical repetitions to build the dose and the intensity so people can regain skills such as making a cup of tea or climbing a flight of steps. In stroke rehab, we're taught to work towards people's goals. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to get back to? Let's make a plan and smash it. You've heard of SMART goals? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timed. We use that as a model and we do intensive, repetitive, task-specific exercises to build the neuroplasticity in your brain to make a change. And that's the mantra that we're taught at university and the mantra that we use to deliver therapy. However, sometimes knowing and doing all of that in relation to the evidence base, it just isn't enough to get people better. So for the last few years of my career, I've been thinking about how to solve a big challenge in rehabilitation and medical care. How to get the patient to do exactly what you want them to do and follow the plan so they can get better. However, what I found is that's not the challenge. The challenge, which is not just a rehabilitation challenge, but a challenge for the NHS, is how we empower people to make and think of their own plan quickly and do it because they want to do it. And they stick to it. Because on my journey through stroke rehab and the NHS, I've learned things that we all should know. We're not just dealing with patients, we're dealing with people. Every patient presentation doesn't fit into the textbook or the guidelines. Life isn't specific, measurable, timed, and sometimes it isn't even achievable. Life is about the bigger stuff, the things you can't define, the things that sometimes only your subconscious knows. We are made up of our values, our beliefs, our experiences, our environment, and they underpin us as independent, deep-thinking human beings. Bringing all of that together to empower our patients will have a bigger impact on their recovery and their outcomes than any exercises or plan that I can prescribe. So I'm on a mission to transform rehabilitation and to transform the NHS. I'm on a mission to share how we have everyday conversations with our patients that empower them to achieve their goals by using all of these fundamental enablers. Now, this is a different way of doing and thinking and being in the NHS and in rehab. And I do that with all my experience in stroke rehab and all my experience in the NHS. And I do that by sharing elements of a model called the Compelling Outcomes Framework, which was developed by Living Heart in 2019. The Compelling Outcomes Framework is a way for us as healthcare professionals and people to embody how we have everyday conversations with our patients which empower them to achieve their outcomes. They think about what it would be like for them to achieve it and what it would be like when they try it on and if it fits. Just like when you're going to get that essential winter coat. Now, stay with me. Imagine it's autumn, going into winter, and you're going to get that essential winter coat. You go into your favourite shop, and you see it from the distance and think, that's a bit of me. You go over, you pick it up. You like the look, you like the feel, get your size, try it on. Does it fit? Does it look good? Is it how you imagined it? Can you see yourself wearing it on the school run, to the cinema, out with your mates? Does it fit with your budget? Are you going to commit to buying it? Are you actually going to take it to the till and purchase it? And when you get it home, are you actually going to wear it? And that's the same thing as a compelling outcomes framework. It's about getting our patients to think about what they want to get, the bigger picture, getting them to imagine it, try it on, and see if it fits, just like that coat. And I want to put it into context of a patient that compelled me to work this way, Bob. I met Bob in 2011. Bob was in his early 50s. He had a wife, 2 kids, and he was a bricklayer. And he loved nothing more than playing practical jokes on me and riding his motorbike at the weekend with his mates. Bob had a stroke at work, and it devastated his world. Now, a stroke is also known as a cerebrovascular accident, and it's when a tiny bleed or block gets lodged in the brain, and it can cause millions of brain cells to die if left untreated. And because our brain affects every function and feeling in our body, its effects can be life-changing. It behaves just like an accident. One minute you're fine, and the next minute you're not. It's a tragedy with devastating effects. Now, I met Bob as his community physiotherapist. And when I went into Bob's house, he had written down all his goals. He wanted to be able to walk with a stick, go to the shop with his wife, write his name with his right hand, and go to the toilet on his own. Okay, Bob, great goals. So when you've achieved those goals, are you going to be happy with how your whole life looks? And he looked at me. You asked me what goals I wanted to achieve in physiotherapy, not if I'd be happy with how my whole life looks. So I asked him, what would make you happy with how your whole life looks? He thought about it for a second. He said, getting back on my motorbike. Because I'm a biker. And if I'm not a biker, then who am I? So I asked him, what's important about being a biker? Freedom, he said, without hesitation. I want to feel free again. Freedom, Bob? What does freedom mean to you? He said it was the feeling of the wind in his hair and being in his leathers that he missed because he associated it with being free. So we talked about what freedom looked like now and in the future. And he said it wasn't that he needed to get on the bike on his own. That wasn't what it was about for him. It was that feeling of freedom and being in control of where he was going. That was my light bulb moment. Bob had shared his compelling outcome with me. That feeling of freedom was key and everything that I could hang his rehabilitation off. So we had so many discussions about how he might get to freedom and get on his motorbike. But Bob laid out all the steps, all the way to that bigger goal. And then he started doing things that he wasn't meant to do, according to the guidelines. Smashing goal after goal with what I can only describe as a 24/7 rehab mentality, so focused on his outcome of getting on that motorbike and freedom. And when Bob got on his adapted motorbike 6 months later, in his leathers, sat back in the saddle, turned the throttle, and rode away with his wife, that was the proudest moment of my career. Because I didn't need to make Bob's goal realistic. I didn't have to crush his identity. He made a new future Bob. Not a return to pre-stroke Bob, not Bob the stroke victim or Bob the stroke survivor. He was Bob the thriver. And that's who I waved goodbye to that day in his leathers. And now I use compelling outcomes with all my patients as we have conversations about what really matters to them and unpack all the goals up to the point where they want to get to, whatever realistic for them. My only ask is that every action is in service of something really meaningful. So we're not just doing the repetitive cup to mouth. We're raising a glass to your daughter at her wedding, and we're feeling that feeling. That is what makes it compelling. And as healthcare professionals and people, if we start having conversations with each other around our compelling outcomes and get people to try on their compelling outcome coat or different coats until they find the thing that fits, that is powerful. So how do we get down to the nitty-gritty of someone's outcome? The first step is to get them to try on the proverbial coat for future fit. What will it look like, feel like, be like when I've achieved it? The second is to see if it actually fits. Does it fit with your life? Is it something that you even want to fit into anymore? The third is related to our time and commitment. And this can sometimes be the hardest thing because it can often be misconstrued as the patient not wanting to give enough. However, I think we can all be honest that sometimes we aren't truly realistic about what the ask is of us in relation to our time, our energy, and our commitment to get things done. I've had many a stare off with patients as we're looking into each other's eyes and I'm saying, to get here, we need to do this, this, this. Are you going to do it? Really? And the fourth is related to our behaviours and our beliefs. How will you know you've achieved it? And what do you need to hold to be true to get it done? And this involves careful listening to our patients in their own words. If they're saying, I will never, I can't, this will never happen because, then we need to listen because that's probably true for them. And those are the beliefs that need to be gently challenged for them to achieve their transformation. And by me having those conversations with Bob around what really mattered to him, I was able to keep his outcomes optimistic and also realistic. Since working this way, I haven't had to get my patients to do anything. I haven't had to force them to follow a plan. They do it because they want to do it. And I'm supporting my team to deliver on compelling outcomes and use what we coin conversational rehab and wellbeing coaching to support people to achieve what they want. Any reluctance or resistance around how do we do this safely and we don't have time are being reduced and replaced as we start having conversations with our patients around what really matters to them, and we move away from the doing rehab to you model, and we move towards the doing rehab with you, we can support and facilitate you model. Because when we truly listen to our patients and let them make decisions about how they want to live their lives, they can guide us to the best versions of their lives. And that is why I'm in healthcare. Thank you.